Hello, hello. Welcome to this Webi-NRR. It's a webinar from us at Startdeliver. Great to have you, and this is the number 5 in the series. We've done a series where we focus basically on things that have huge impact on your net revenue retention. And we're going to finish strong today talking about onboarding, customer onboarding, a key topic in customer success that have a big impact on how your net revenue retention develops. I'm Johan Nilsson. I'm a CEO and founder at Startdeliver. I'm going to be your host today. This is a live webinar, so if you're listening in live, make sure to post questions in the Q&A tab here in the Zoom app, and we'll take questions along the way. It's going to be quite intense, but we're going to share the recording. We're also going to share the presentation with you. And make sure also to follow up with us if you have any further questions, you want to see more about this product we have, or want to know more about what we do. Make sure to reach out. Best way to do it is through LinkedIn. Also, if you haven't watched the previous episodes being 1 to 4, those are available as well on our website. So go there and check them out. So every episode we cover a specific topic that we believe have a big impact on your net revenue retention. Today we're going to talk about onboarding, and I want to give my founder perspective, being a founder of a SaaS business, being a CEO of a SaaS business. The onboarding part of the life cycle, I would say, is probably the most important part to set your customers on the right track. And we talk a lot in this series about how key it is for growth to keep churn at a minimum. And I think a lot of the seeds are planted early for churn. And what I mean by that is that if you set the customer on the right track from the start, they will renew with you. They will keep doing business with you. They will even grow with you. So if you do it right from the start, you will get off to a great relationship and a great business and a great net revenue retention eventually. So that's why I believe onboarding is such a key thing. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. And if we start just going back to basics here, what is onboarding? And onboarding, I think it's very, everybody knows onboarding as the way we take on customers. But if we think a little bit deeper about what onboarding really is, and if we start there, I think it's really good to look at this from the customer's perspective. So we bring new customers in and we introduce them to our product and we onboard them to our product, right? That's what we usually mean with onboarding. But if we take a step back and think about it from the customer's perspective, from their perspective, they're buying a new tool, right? They're excited. We got a new tool. We evaluated a lot of options, but we found this one and we really like it. They are excited about that, right? And usually they come from a place where data was not very useful to them. But with this new tool, their data is going to become more useful. If it's a CRM, maybe they're going to get better leads. They're going to get better insights on their prospects and so on. If it's an HR tool, they're going to get better database of applicants. They're going to get a better potentially a better sourcing tool for new hires, right? So data is going to become more useful. That's what they see here. And they're going to save a lot of work, right? That's what they think here. I got this new tool. It's super exciting. I'm going to clear up all this mess of the data I have. And I'm going to have less work with manual work, with all these things that we're doing today with workarounds, right? But what happens when we start onboarding a customer, really, I think this is where we get into trouble sometimes. It's that they get a new tool, but it's actually a new way of working. It's a new behavior. They've been doing things in another way, and now we're going to change their behavior and doing it in our way, this way. And everybody who's been trying to change someone's behavior knows it's usually not as easy as we think. So that's one of these obstacles that we hit when we start onboarding a customer. And what about the data part, right? So they see this vision where we're going to make their data much more useful. And sometimes the case, I would say quite often, the case is that their data is a mess. You know, this shit in, shit out principle applies a lot of times. So there's going to be more things we need to fix here before their data actually becomes useful. And the last part here, sometimes, at least in the onboarding phase, it might even be more work, right? They bring in this new tool, they have the data is a mess, they need to change the behaviors, but they also need to do a lot of work just to get this going, right? So it's very important to for us, I think, to level set here and realize, yeah, onboarding might sound simple, sound easy, sounds like something very natural, but there are a lot of things in this mix that makes it potentially a problem, right? So that's the customer's perspective on onboarding. If we look at our perspective, I think the constant battle for any business is how can we be super customer centric and at the same time highly efficient. And that comes into play when you talk about onboarding as well. Because imagine if we put in the whole company just to onboard one customer. Would that be very customer centric? Yes, they would love this onboarding, right? But would it be efficient? Probably not. Most likely not. And on the other hand, if we have a completely self-serve onboarding, it might be super efficient, but it might not suit our type of customer and it might not be customer centric. So from our perspective, we need to balance this with both being super customer centric and super efficient. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. How can we make this happen, taking into account the first perspective, the customer perspective. And I'm going to talk about how can we speed up onboarding. But before we get into how we speed up onboarding, we need to understand when is the onboarding complete? When is the onboarding complete? I think that's a challenging question. And when I ask customers that, I also a lot of time I get very different answers. Sometimes someone will say, yeah, we are complete when we finish the last task in the project. Some will say, yeah, it's complete when the customer says it's complete. It's a variable. We get the answers can be varying a lot quite when we talk about when it's completed. This is a typical onboarding scheme, typical flow, and I would say usually the first part of this where we have some sort of a kickoff or a handover, the deal has been won, a new customer has been signed up, we start the onboarding. We have some sort of a tech call usually, or we have some technical part, setup part, and then we launch, and then we have some user training, and then we hit the first value. The customer gets the first value. We have some maybe sign off, are we okay so far? And then we have a follow-up. It's a very normal setup. But what's usually the problem here is that we after the setup part, this is where, or even before the setup, things happen. Things go sideways. Back to this first customer perspective slide, right? The data is a mess. We get stuck in that. The customer they don't fully understand how big of a change this is going to be for how they work and what they do. That makes it difficult to implement it. Things happen here basically. But what I would say is the key part is to get to what we call the first value, because if we just count when we complete the onboarding, when we complete the project, that's not customer centric at all. We haven't completed the onboarding when we launch, because that's not customer centric. But when the customer gets to first value is they get some initial value in line with why they bought your product from the first place. So maybe that's if you're a CRM product, maybe that's when the first deal has been won. Or maybe it's just when the first new lead comes into the system, or we book the first appointment, or we create the first opportunity. If it's an e-sign solution, maybe it's the first agreement we send out and the customer signs. So you need to find this. It's going to be very different depending on your type of product, but you need to find what is first value. And when we want to focus on increasing speed in the onboarding, we want to increase this speed. from the day they sign to they get the first value part of our platform. And first value, it's not meaning they get the full value, maybe not the full thing we sold to them, but they get the taste of it basically. And they get, and that's very, very important, because we want to have as close, we have them getting to that part as soon as possible. In a more of a product-led type of product, you want to get that even when they start using the platform the first day, right? In a more enterprise type of solution, this can take some time before they get there. In a bigger type of onboarding, in a bigger type of implementation, you might want to just give them a hint that they will get to this first value. So this can vary, of course, depending on your type of product, your type of customer, and so on. But this is the speed we want to increase, and this is what we're going to talk about today. How can we increase here? And to do that, I want to break it down in our 5 keys here to increase speed in onboarding. I'm going to go through them in detail. I'm just going to give you the first intro here. So number 1, it's about the handover. Number 2 is about expectations. Number 3 here is accountability. Number 4 is positive energy. And number 5 is measure. So let's dig into the first one. Handover. So what we mean here is the sales handover. So sales has closed the deal. Now it's usually the case that someone else in our team is going to do the onboarding, right? So we have an onboarding specialist, or we have a customer success manager that's going to be responsible for taking the customer on board. And this is super critical because everybody knows this. I think that's been working with customers for a while. Customers hate to repeat themselves. They hate when someone is not fully involved in what they're trying to achieve. And a great way to set things up badly is to fail on the handover. And I would say everybody understands handover, but very few do it in a great way. So I'm going to share some great ways to do, or some important points to pick up from the handover. We want to understand, where is this customer coming from? What is their starting point? So are they starting, if I'll take the CRM example, are they coming from spreadsheets, or are they changing from one vendor to another? And who is that vendor? So their starting point is very important. And it can make a lot of difference in how you go about things. We want to understand the why here. Why are they getting this? Why have they decided to purchase our product, and what is their goal? This is a lot of times discussed in detail in the sales process, but it kind of gets lost in the handover. And I'm going to get back to it later, why it's really important to have this. And the clearer this is, the better. Ideally, they have a really clear goal that's linked to business outcomes. They want to grow, they want to save money, they want to become more efficient, and they have a timeline for that. That's super to have. If we don't get that from sales, that's also something we could ask in the handover ask from the customer side. We also want to understand the context to the decision, why they picked us as a vendor. Was it because they didn't trust other people, or they didn't have a specific feature or a specific integration, or whatever it can be? So the context to the decision here. And maybe if they switched from another vendor to us, what happened there? Super important. So we really understand where they're coming from. Stakeholders, of course, there's going to be stakeholders both. Usually there's going to be stakeholders involved in the onboarding, but there's going to be stakeholders that made the decision, that signed the contract. There's going to be stakeholders that are going to start using the product. We want to have a full picture of who are the people here behind the customer, or more in front of the customer, the ones we're going to work with. We want to understand expectations here as well. How do they expect us to interact with them? Are they very much do-it-themselves type of people, or are they more white glove, where they want us to be very involved and basically hold their hands and do everything for them? Maybe we don't want to do that, but it's still important to understand where are they coming from here. Is there any customizations or integrations that are very specific to them that have been discussed a lot in the sales process? Very important to follow up and to not miss. That's going to potentially make the onboarding stuck, and we're going to end up having usually that's one of the issues that are missed in the handover that later blows up in the project. Pain points. This customer is suffering a lot right now because they have XYZ, right? So these things can be linked to the goal, but it can be more concrete. They don't have any clue what's going on right now with their finances, or they don't have any clue, or they are missing a lot of information on leads, or they have a huge manual work now to sign agreements or contracts or whatever it is. They have some clear pain points. We want to know them. The last 3 points here are more from our point of view, our business point of view with the customer. What are the commercial terms with this customer? What has been agreed, what has been promised, what has been negotiated, and so on. And this is very important both to understand, so we know what we are supposed to deliver, but also going forward, have we been talking about an add-on that they didn't buy now, but they are going to be looking to buy later on? So we set them up on that track. We also want to understand the risks here. Yeah, it's very important that this works. Otherwise, they will eventually leave, or they need this to continue working with us or whatever. So the commercial risks as well. And maybe in the sales process, we sense that they have very limited resources on their side to do something. And that's potential risk for us to pay attention to. So we have a lot to capture in the handover. I'm sure you're covering a lot of this. Maybe you do it in meetings or similar, or you have some sort of an email that goes over. This can be done. You can speed up these things very efficiently. In Startdeliver, we have a form to work with, but you can also use AI for this. If you're working with meeting recordings, we have some examples of tools here that are like Gong and similar. There are Garba, there are Metric, and so on. There are a lot of different tools. We have a way to aggregate all that data and put that into a handover, and then populate it in Startdeliver into both the customer, but also into a project and priorities and so on. So to simplify this and not miss it, I would strongly recommend using AI, both when you have the meetings in the sales process, but then also using a tool to really capture this and make this, simplify this. Because this is typically a thing that everybody wants to do, but everybody skips it because it's a lot of admin to really get it right. So that's number one. Number two, moving on here, we need to fix expectations or manage expectations. If you remember the slide I started with, the expectations from the customer side, they are excited about a new tool. They are excited about getting data to work for them. They are excited about spending less manual time doing whatever they've been doing. But the reality hits here when you start onboarding. They need to change behaviors. They need to fix their data. They need to do a lot of work just to get up and running, usually. So we need to manage expectations here and be very clear on how this is going to work. Another thing that makes it complicates onboarding sometimes is that there are new people coming in. We hand over internally from sales to customer success, but on the customer side, there might be new people coming in that haven't been involved in the sales process, at least maybe not fully. And some people will step out as well. Maybe the person who signed the deal and bought the tool is a C-level type of person, and they will kind of step out of the onboarding project. And there will be new people coming in that's going to manage this and so on. So there's a lot of things we need to manage here. And I think a great way to look at it, and you can really map this out, what things the customer needs to do on their end outside of the product. Very, very, very often this is overlooked, and this is where things get stuck. They need to do things on their side that's outside of the product in order for us to onboard them. Then there are things they need to do inside the product. That's usually something we are a little bit better on, but we need to also be very clear on what that is. Then there are things we need to do together, and then there's things we do for them, basically. It's a great exercise here is just to map out the steps you have in the onboarding process and then see what falls under each of these 4 categories. And when you clarify that, you become you can be much clearer with expectations to the customer. We'll get back to that later as well, how you do that. But key thing here is to manage expectations. Number 3, accountability. And I think this is probably one of the things that can make the biggest difference. A lot of times when we have long dragging onboardings that never finish, we have not done 1 and 2, but we have definitely not done number 3 here. And that's basically making the customer more accountable for the onboarding. We call it joint accountability at Impact Academy. And I want to mention a few things that are real speed levers, basically. Make someone responsible from the customer side for the onboarding. Maybe that's somewhat defined, but make it really clear that we need this from our side to work with someone on your side that's responsible for the onboarding project on from the customer side. Another part that's really important is to tell the person who signed the contract, we want you to be involved in the onboarding to make sure that we are fully aligned and that we are having the progress that we set out to have when you signed up for becoming a customer of ours. We also need to work with async communication here because we cannot have everybody in meetings all the time. That's not going to be efficient. So we need to have async communication, meaning recorded content, prepared content that the customer can consume on their own time, when they are available, when they have time. Another thing here is to train the trainer. I guess a lot of times you do that, but I think that's also a real efficiency and speed lever where you can make someone at the customer side responsible for training the team. We can do it, or I mean, you can't train your users, you can train the end users here, but make someone the trainer concept is a way to really speed up things and also make it more efficient. So joint accountability is about back to the expectations. There are things we need to do on our side. There are things you need to do on your side, and we need to delegate those tasks. So it's very clear. You need to do this in order for us to keep the timeline for the project, to keep the timeline for you getting on board, keeping the timeline for you to getting to first value, and eventually getting to the goal and the why to why you became a customer of ours. You need to do these things. So we need to delegate things to the customer. As a customer success manager, onboarding specialist, you need to also probably delegate things internally for maybe your support is going to help you. Maybe you have some tech resource. So it's also about delegating internally, of course. And how can we do this in a practical way? We have at Startdeliver, we have a shared space functionality where you basically can put everything in a shared space. You can invite the customer, you can invite the stakeholders on the customer side, you can invite the product manager, you can invite our people, their people, everybody's on the same page, and from here you can collaborate. So I would say this is the future in terms of becoming more accountable and also managing expectations. So if you're not working with this today, I would highly recommend doing it. This is both making it more customer-centric and more efficient. Of course, it's a little bit of work to get this going, but when you have it up and running, I think this is a great way to speed up things. So that was number 3, accountability, collaboration, very key part to increase speed in onboarding. Another one that's a little bit more fussy, but I would say also critical, and it's to keep the energy up in the product. Because when the customer signs up for a new tool, energy is high, they have made a decision, they are looking for this brighter future together with us. And then it's a big risk that we get into this long dragging project with a lot of issues, problems, and technical stuff that brings the energy down in everything we do. So a key thing to keep up the speed is to have a positive energy in the project. And what that means in practice is basically find quick wins. Break down the steps you have in the onboarding and identify quick wins. A quick win can be, we have activated this integration and it's now syncing. It's a little bit, it's a very small step on the road, but at least that's done. You can tick that off in the onboarding project. Everybody gets the news. This has been done. We have a quick win here. Another quick win can be we have invited all of the users. You can identify several things that are small quick wins that are of course not the full thing, but something to bring up, something to celebrate, because there's going to be things that you also have that are lagging, most likely. So a way to bring up the energy in the project is to have these quick wins. Another thing to keep the positive energy in the project is to communicate. Nothing hurts an onboarding more than poor communication. When the customer has to ask several times for a status update, that's going to bring the energy down a lot, and it's going to become almost like a disappointment in how things are going. So we need to be proactive in our communication. We can communicate around the quick wins. We need to communicate clearly also to keep the goal top of mind. They bought this tool to grow their sales. They bought our product to become more efficient and save cost. Whatever it might be, we need to remind everyone that this is the case. And that can be done in the shared space, that can be done in your calls, just to bring everybody back to why are we doing this? Also, we need to keep everybody online. Where are we versus the live date? Or whatever you call your project deadlines. And it's very important to keep everybody in the loop here. Sometimes the customer will have unclear communication on their side, between them, between the project leader, between the users, between the C-level or the decision makers, whatever. So it's very important to keep all of them in the loop. Another thing I think we sometimes forget is that we can still keep marketing or introducing the way we work. So don't be afraid to involve them or share with them webinars that are relevant, share with them how other customers similar to them are doing, and bring that type of inspiration into the onboarding as well. Meanwhile, we're waiting for this integration to be set up. Check out these 3 videos or webinars or white papers or case studies, whatever you have there, and bring back the best things from them to our next call. So back to keeping energy up here. And I think also very important to start talking about next steps. Okay, we're going live here. We're going to get the users in. Following that, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 3 months, whatever it is down the road, I'm going to introduce this to you because I think you're going to be ready. So keep next steps also in your communication here. So that's communication. That's number 4. Number 4 is positive energy, and communication is a key part in that. Number 5, and like everything, you need to measure in order to improve, and the same goes for onboarding. A lot of times we don't know how long our average onboarding is. Also depends how we define what's a complete onboarding. But if we measure time to first value, or how long does it take for them to start getting value from our platform, and we define that in some way, we need to start measuring that. And you need to measure that, of course, to make sure that we are improving here. And there will be always, and you can start looking, if you have a lot of onboardings, you have a lot of customers, maybe you want to differentiate between cohorts. Maybe you have some enterprise type of customers, maybe you have some more SMB customers, whatever. Maybe you have different onboarding plans. You can start differentiate also there to see, okay, do we have different efficiency metrics for different type of onboardings as well. So you need to measure the success from the customer point of view, but you need to also measure this from an internal point of view. How much resources do we spend in onboard? And that's usually a big eye-opener when you see how much time you spend in onboarding. And I would say it's like the 80-20 rule here, where you usually have 20% of the onboardings taking up 80% of the resources. And here you need to start identifying why is that? So if you have a clear project management tool like Startdeliver, where you can manage all your onboardings, you can also track how efficient we are, how much time we spend, then you get a lot of insights also into how you can improve. And sometimes it comes down to the wrong type of customer. Sometimes it comes down to we can charge more for these type of onboardings. And sometimes it comes down to we need to just be more, we need to improve specific processes and so on. So everybody knows this, but it's very important to also measure both from a customer perspective, but also from our internal efficiency perspective. How are we doing with onboardings, really? So in a summary, this is how you speed up onboarding. You need to fix your handovers, critical, but you can do this with AI now. So fix your handovers, expectations. You need to manage expectations. When an onboarding project is delayed, when it drags out, we haven't been clear on expectations. And number 3 here, we haven't been clear on accountability. Those two are very, they are intersected, and they are equally important to speed up things. Bring in positive energy in the project. Make that not something nice that you do sometimes. Make it a clear part of the project. And start measuring this. And then you will see how you're doing, basically. With that, I'm going to wrap up. Thank you for joining, and see you back soon.